Welcome to the Magdalene Voices, giving voice to those silenced for centuries through sacred conversations with beautiful, illuminating souls. I'm your host, spiritual business coach, mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Maria Estela. I serve experienced, soul-driven, heart-based spiritual entrepreneurs, business owners, Magdalenes rising, and radiant beings just like you with the expansion and growth of yourself and your business, aligning you with your deep inner truth, bringing to life that which you're here to birth, and supporting you in expressing your soul's divine purpose through your being and your doing in this lifetime. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to join my newsletter to stay connected and updated. You can do so on my website, mariaestela.com, where you can also find previous episodes and their show notes. And if you have ever wondered about your Magdalene connection and calling, and whether you are a Magdalene, I invite you to download the free Magdalene blueprint I've created for you. Go to mariaestela.com/AYM to get it. Also, if you're a soul-driven, heart-based spiritual entrepreneur, don't forget to check out my podcast, Spiritual Business with Maria Estela. It's designed to inspire you, empower you, guide you, nurture you, and activate you. You can find it on YouTube as well as everywhere podcasts are broadcasted, or click the link in the show notes. Today I'm joined by Jonita de Sousa. Jonita is a feminine lifestylist, an author and creatress of Exploring Femininity, assisting modern-day women who struggle with burnout, overwhelm, and body love to reconnect with their feminine and sensual energy using the ancient Taoist and Tantric arts so that they can create a lifestyle that is fulfilling, nurturing, and pleasurable. She is also a certified life coach, NLP practitioner, master hypnotherapist, and combines the teaching of feminine mysticism and shamanism in her work, facilitating monthly moon circles, online workshops, and sacred feminine retreats. Jonita believes that it is the responsibility of the 21st century women to explore their femininity and activate their Shakti so that they can create a sustainable life for themselves, for their loved ones, and for generations to come. In today's episode, Jonita highlights with her resonating ancient truth and wisdom just how powerful women are, why that's been suppressed for centuries, and how you as a woman have an incredible tool for the reclamation of your power within you. We go deep into a topic that's often considered taboo and not very often spoken about this freely, so be prepared to have your current notions about the women's cycle and the power of her blood rattled. As always, I encourage you to listen with an open heart and an open mind and take only what serves you and leave the rest. Here is our sacred conversation. So, Jonita, welcome to the Magdalene Voices. We are going to be, I guess this shouldn't come as a surprise to those who've listened to this before, but we're going to be going deep into a very powerful and probably often very taboo subject. We're going to be talking about the menstruation, women's blood, the bleeding, however many ways we want to call it. And I've been wanting to find someone to speak on this, and you appeared in my inbox, and it was just a moment of, yes, there she is. That's wonderful. Let's join. And so that is what has brought us together. And I am so grateful that you have taken time out of your calendar to come be with us today. In terms of where do we start? I think I'm going to give you the floor. I have a ton of questions, and I think that they're going to come out during our conversation. But would you speak, maybe you should just start by simply saying what is the female cycle or the woman's cycle, and what is menstruation? When does it start? When does it end? What happens in between? And I know that's a whole podcast. So maybe let's start there. Tell us what the female cycle is, or the a woman's cycle is.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for talking about it. There are not many people talking about it so openly, and I'm so glad more and more women like us are, opening the platform for this discussion.
Yes.
And it's a very courageous thing, I know, because a lot of us have resistance towards it. And thank you so much for being that, beacon as well. And I also love your sacred work with the Magdalene voices. So I'm so honored and excited to, go straight into this topic and explore all those areas which have not been talked very often.
No.
Yeah, in the public domain.
Yeah.
Um, Interestingly, I was several times, I think I should say 2 times, also banned from Facebook for promoting my menstruation course, because they said the content was abusive, which was like a shock to me, because I mentioned blood, and it was during the time of Halloween, where there were zombies all over on Facebook, but my Facebook ad for menstruation was blocked, and I was barred for 7 days.
Wow.
So yeah, there's been like an ongoing war, invisible war in our heads and outside as well, which is very visible. Yeah. And I'm so excited to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, cycles are so interesting. I must begin with this interesting quote in Ayurveda. I come from India, so a lot of my research and learning and teaching practice has been related to the ancient Ayurvedic ways and the Taoist and the Chinese medicine, and it's an integration of that. And I was really surprised to read this quote in Ayurveda, which said something like, there are only 2 instances when a disease can enter a woman's body. Firstly, if she is not in alignment with the moon, or secondly, if she is not in alignment with her inner moon.
Oh.
And I was like, wow, what does this even mean?
Yeah.
Outer moon and inner moon.
Yeah.
And that kind of led me to the exploration of the entire concept of cycles and what it is. And my journey of exploring femininity has brought me to this understanding that we women are, cyclic beings. And there are 3 dominant cycles that we have to begin to understand in order to cope up with this busy lifestyle, this crazy lifestyle. I know everybody talks about time management and, the busyness and all of that. But for us busy women, it's all about energy management. And the more we understand the nuances, the easier it becomes. So the 3 main cycles are pretty much the cycles of the moon, which is the 28-day cycle. And the second is the cycle of our inner moon, which is also known as our menstruation, our periods, our bleeding, which is also around 28.5, 29 days. And the third is the cycles of the nature, the Mother Earth, with which we are so deeply connected. And all of these are really interweaving in its characteristics. So if I have to define like a cycle of one of these cycles, you will see how each of them is connected. So let's say that I begin my periods today. So this is my first day of bleeding. That represents pretty much in the phase of the new moon, which is pretty much going inward. It's the dark thing, and this is when our creativity is heightened and we are intuitively much more sensitive.
Yes.
And it, in relation to the seasons of the earth, it relates to the winter time, where we are in this phase. There's much more darkness around and we don't want to do much things. We just want to be hibernating. So this is so connected. However, we women do not take this time to go into this winter time phase of our periods, to go into this new moon phase of our inner moon, which kind of leads to various other things like the PMS,
Mm.
which is now kind of termed as a medical syndrome, which
Yeah.
is it's not a medical it's not a sickness, it's an emotional thing. And I like to redefine PMS by saying please make space. So with with the women that I coach, I say, if in order to get over from premenstrual syndrome, it's asking you to please make space. And when we start going and actually feeding and nourishing ourselves in this phase, in this new moon phase, in this winter phase of our period, that's when we can realize a lot of, first of all, a lot of emotions are heightened. So we may feel really resistant to it, first of all. I think unconsciously we women don't want to face a lot of these emotions, which is why we bypass, by painkillers and, sugar and coffee and all of that.
Yeah.
That's a phase which takes a lot of courage to come to stillness, to listen, to really see your dark side.
Yes.
So that's the beginning of pretty much a phase with our periods, the winter season, as well as the new moon season, the new moon time.
But I suppose also our society, or at least in most places, is not really adapted to a woman being able to, at least unless you're an entrepreneur, unless, because that's one of the benefits of working by yourself, is that you're able to attune your cycles to your entrepreneurial cycles to your moon cycles, if you know them. But I guess in general, our society is not really geared towards that. Not anymore. It used to be, right? It used to be that the woman had her opportunity to go into stillness
and stuff like that. Yeah, you're really right, because we live in a masculine driven society and a lot of things are very linear. However, by for us women, by becoming aware, we can make subtle changes. I'm not saying don't stop going to your jobs and stop looking after your kids or doing the household chores and things like that. But understanding these cycles will allow you to make small changes at times. Like, for example, do not overload yourself with a lot of commitments during this time, for example. Like, don't say yes to everything but for that, you need to know when your cycles are as well. So tracking your cycle is another important bit.
Yes. That actually, I want to say that tracking first of all, there are two things. Ditching my birth control many moons ago, and then tracking my cycles, beginning to understand those phases, has been like a revelation. I like really understanding this is, and knowing there's such a you're able to, I don't want to say it's love, but to accept yourself more when you understand, this is simply because this is the time of the month that I'm in.
Yeah, and not being hard on yourself. And you know what? It's a real gift to your loved ones as well, because because if you understand these things about yourself, then you are able to better communicate to your partners or maybe to your children. And if your mother, you have a daughter, she's going to see this as an example. So it's for the greater good. So moving on to the next phase is the phase of the waxing moon, and which is the phase when we move into the second week of our cycle. And this pretty much represents the energy of the season spring, where the energy is rising. So when we were in the new moon time, when our period started, when it was winter time, we go inwards. It's time of visioning, reflecting. It's a time of looking within, like what am I called to create? It's a very creatress energy, kind of. What am I here to birth? What are my desires? And looking into it. And we may be tempted to take actions, but what I personally recommend is to allow yourself to be in this phase for a few days of your bleeding, because you are super intuitive during that time. So beautiful transmission is coming through you. So do not bypass this. And when you move into spring, what happens is that you have gathered enough those butterflies in your stomach. That you cannot actually wait to bring some realization of what you have learned. Probably journaling is a really beautiful thing to do during this time. And this is how we can cultivate energy, because a lot of times when we do not allow ourselves to rest during periods, then when we come out of it, we're still drained. So the burnout factor just continues. It goes on and on. There's no phase of energy, and in our body automatically feels like, wow, okay, I'm ready. I feel like there is more hope, And so that's the second phase, pretty much the second week of this 28-day cycle. And as an entrepreneur, it's really good to start making plans. This is the time you can start making plans. Look into your diaries and see, what you can do about the desire and the visions and the reflection that you did during your winter and your moon time. And then you move on to the full moon time, which is the third week of your cycle. This is where your energy is in full bloom. So it represents the summer season. So you know how you feel in summer. You are more outgoing. You have all this energy. You want to socialize. So this is very good time for you to, socialize. Go out. You can actually organize your diaries based on this, so you can better manage your energy. So this is the time you can meet more people, and you can go on dates. This is when your energy is magnetic. As a businesswoman, this is where you can have your workshops or do these important meetings and presentations, because you are ready and you are full of that energy that you have cultivated bit by bit. And then you move on to the fourth phase, which is pretty much the waning phase, which is similar to the autumn season. And that is, in your springs, in this week 2 and week 3, the spring and the summer phase, both your left and right brain are really active. So it becomes easier for you to do those linear jobs as well, paperwork and all those, left work. So, and then when you move on to the fourth week, your left brain activity begins to slow down. So you start to become more and more inward. So it's a phase of autumn, like what needs to be released. This is where you can actually keep reflecting back and seeing how is it going, what you can let go of, and where you can slow down. It's an invitation to start wrapping yourself to get prepared to enter the moon one more time, one more time. So these cycles go inside of us, outside of us, and it's all around us. And when we start to track, as you said, when we know our cycles, we can then better manage our diaries, people around us, and ourselves, our emotions. We can have a better understanding of our emotions.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one who by now is like
what?
There's so many things but so many things are making sense. Like so many things are making sense. Like when I have my scatter brain, that's when the linear brain, the left brain is turned off. It all makes total sense. So go ahead.
And there are days when you think that some things just happen so easily, and then there are some days where you just push and you come to an understanding of when to better do the things at what time and phases of your moon. So.
Exactly. Yes. And I mean, this is like, again, like the tracking is crucial, because that's what I've begun to understand without this knowledge, but I've begun to understand how that was working. So thank you for sharing that. In terms of, there's two things that come up, something about bleeding, but also because our cycles don't always correlate with the moon cycle. So you've mentioned new moon, waxing moon, full bloom, and then the waning phase. But me personally, I've seen mine shifts. I think my cycle is about 27 days in on average. It's only 27 days. So and my bleeding is 3 or 4 days. So it's 31 day. Well, it's not 31 days, but it's 27 days. So that also means it doesn't necessarily follow and I know that some will probably have it follow the moon, but others it doesn't. Do you have any wisdom on that?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Again, having this awareness, once you track your cycles as well as the moon for 2, 3 months, then you will realize, like, okay, I'm shifting. And again, like as feminine, we are like, the Shakti is ever changing.
Yes.
So throughout the year, ancient times, the year used to be the 13 moons. Yeah? So,
Yes.
so throughout the year, we shift our moon, our inner moon shifts from to various phases of the moon. So you may begin the year with bleeding with the new moon. It may then change, slowly shift to the waning phase, maybe full moon. So you are shifting, and the key thing to know is which phase of the moon you bleed with.
Yeah.
Once in any given month, because
Yeah.
once you know that, then you know that the moon is ever present to guide you with what energy is available to you to evolve or transform it at that particular month, at that particular lunar cycle.
Yeah.
For example, women who bleed with the new moons are known as the white women, which is pretty much the energy of creation, birthing. So if you are currently bleeding closer to the new moon, then what is present and available to you is the energy of creation and birthing. It's an invitation for you to remember that, what do I need to create? What do I need to birth? If you are bleeding somewhere towards the waxing moon, which is like when the moon is rising, that means the energy is available for you to come out of your shed. So you can do an inquiry that this energy is present, the moon's energy is present, and what am I called to come out of the hiding from? When you read with the full moon, this is the energy of a medicine woman, a healer, a space holder. It's the time which is really important, that tells us women that we have done the work. Now it's time to share the work. Now it's time to open up space, become space holders, so you can see where you can actually be serving through your presence.
Yes.
And same with if you're bleeding through the waxing moon,
Yeah.
or waning moon, then you relate to their energies. And in ancient days, when the red tent used to happen, most of the women used to bleed during new moons. And so they would go into the red tent, and the women who were bleeding in the full moons will be the space holders for those women to come in and and facilitate them to vision and share their insights in the community. So it's really important to know which phase we are bleeding with, and to use that energy as an invitation for us to show and share our presence in the world.
That is such a, because that's actually a question, that's actually one of the things that I've been trying to figure out currently, in terms of, because I understood, because I can see when I'm more, like you say, more introverted, more extroverted, more outgoing, more leave me alone, all of that. But I've also been trying to figure out how that correlates to the moon, and that makes total sense, because once you know your cycle and you start bleeding, then you'll kind of know when you're next bleeding, and then you can use that invitation for the next. That is that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. One question that comes up is, what about women who don't bleed, either because they've had what's it called, is a hysterectomy, like either they've had
their womb removed,
which is, I know that for some that's a solution, but I also know that for it sometimes seems it's kind of like the appendix, like you just remove it and you don't know what it's really for. We know what the womb is for, and so removing that can be, but I understand that it's necessary for some. So how about women who don't bleed, either because they haven't started their bleeding or because they've finished their bleeding, like the active bleeding?
So for those women who have had their womb removed or are probably in the menopause stage, they can go into the alignment with the moon cycles itself. For women who have their womb removed, they still have the energy. The energy is still in there. If you are not bleeding, you still hold the energy. You still hold the blood in you when you are menopausal.
Yeah.
So aligning yourself with the phase of the moon will then, and then charting your emotions will then give you the directions of how you are cycling with the moon, how your emotions are cycling with the moon. So it is for every woman.
Okay.
In a woman's body.
Absolutely. I totally get it. So now my question is about bleeding. Let's go into the blood.
Yeah.
Because I remember in preparation for this, I've been kind of thinking about my own stories, and for me, I was born and raised in Denmark, and I remember very early on how the girls that I was surrounded by, how they were talking about having their period or their menstruating, and it wasn't in very nice terms. And I remember thinking, that's so strange, because getting my period means I'm not pregnant. And to me at that time, when you're 16, that is to be celebrated, or that was to be celebrated for me at least. So I never understood why they talk, because they actually in translated directly, they would talk about having their shit. And I found it to be such a demeaning word, or the word just because the way that we talk about periods or have talked about periods, it's become such a what am I trying to say? We've pushed something that is so innate to us as women, so far away from us, and we've distanced ourselves from it. And by that expression, by those words, I was like, I didn't get it, because to me, I was like, I was happy to have my period. Well, I'm not necessarily happy, but I was happy to have my period because it meant that I wasn't pregnant. Not that I was, I wasn't engaging in unsafe sex. That's not, it was just, I just remember at that time thinking, that's so weird, because to me, that was a good thing. But how do you think, I don't know if you have a take on this, but how do you think it got lost? Because at some point in history, women bleeding was something that was sacred and it was honored. And then it kind of got sidetracked. And I know that we're probably going to talk about the patriarchy and all that. But
favorite term.
Yes, but it's so what's your take on how did that get sidetracked? And then after that, we're going to go into the bleeding itself, because one of the things that I'd like to have your wisdom on is, different, because I notice with myself that there is a difference. Sometimes I will bleed like I've been cut, and other times not. So the flow varies in different months and phases and so forth. But first of all, how do you think, or how do you see that when did it get lost? Because what you're sharing is basically ancient wisdom. You're bringing ancient wisdom back.
Yeah. So in several traditions, the Asian, the Native Americans, the Ayurvedic, and all of this, and the Yeshua lineage, the Magdalene lineage, since thousands of years, this menstruation blood had been considered a very sacred thing. And having particularly studied the Magdalene's lineage, I came across resources where when the church was formed, and it was sometime around 500 AD, they decided to remove certain content from the Bible itself, so that kind of demonize, especially menstruation and childbirth, to be honest, in a way to say, to make women powerless.
Yes.
To take that away from them.
Yes.
And which in many ways they were successful. I mean, not in many ways, they were really successful until today. And that's just one of the lineage, the Christianity. It's been in many other lineages seen as well. That the entire taboo is considered based on the fact that our blood is dirty. And if you see, it's really interesting. I noticed something during my research around this topic, that even when on TV, when they show any ads on menstruation, the blood is always blue. They never even show the blood, like the real blood. It's nothing blue. I mean, why?
Yeah.
Growing up in Christian family, for me, it was really important to go behind the roots. That's why I can speak more on the tradition of Christianity, how they decided to take away the power, the gift of women, of being this bearer of life, which is it's just not birthing, it's just not producing a child, but they were sacred blood rituals done since ages. Mary Magdalene was also known as the guardian of the blood. She was actively engaged in teaching women how to use their blood. Our blood is given for a purpose to us, and it's just not for flushing it out of the toilet, but menstruation blood is sacred. If you think about it, this is the only blood that is shed without a wound. We women have the capacity to produce this blood, and this blood is such a potent, fertile thing. In many shamanic traditions, they were used for other greater purposes, like activating the third eye, anointment. If you look into the Hindu tradition, you see the origin of bindi, because they wear this bindi, and it came from the lineage of women were anointing themselves with the blood. It was no powder or red chili powder or something, but it was used to be the blood to anoint the sacred third eye. When in ancient days, when men used to go for battles, women used to anoint them, on their third eye, so that they could feel the blessing and the ritualistic way of, go win. It was given to the crops for fertility. It was used by Egyptian culture for in the women for anti-aging, reducing stretch marks, and improving breast health. So you would rub it all over your body, create this blood face mask kind of thing. So dried menstrual blood was also used to apply on wounds, and it is only right now the scientists have discovered the importance as well, that it contains rich stem cells, rich nutrients, which can also heal cancer and Alzheimer's. And they have created a lot of cell banks where they are actively producing, regenerating these mother cells to cure these diseases. Whereas we can use our menstrual blood for that, because it has all of those potent nutrients. So
my mind is blown. It's like, Jonita, it's like, I didn't know why I was asking that question. I wasn't expecting that answer, but it is so good. I'm like, I am mind blown. Yes, sorry, continue.
Yeah, when I started doing the research, that their industry, the Western medicine has invested so much in finding solutions for creating stem cells, for regenerating tissues, and all of this is possible with a menstrual blood. And if you look, this is pretty much a controversial thing, because we can literally put the Western medicine into a loss if we actually determine the power of our blood.
Yes.
To be honestly speaking. And
the thing I can't help but because I mean this whole thing started with when, or even before. So this started by when Yeshua and Mary walked the earth together. Mm-hmm. She was, as you say, teaching, and she was teaching, and she was, giving knowledge and passing on wisdom and so forth. And so because those men at that time weren't able to process or accept the idea of a woman being leader, or a woman continuing the church of Christ. Yes. And so they I'm just realizing, because in terms of the implications, I know the implications that cutting away one half of yourself, the divine feminine, has been detrimental to our world. And I believe it is part of, it is part of why we see the white supremacy, we see white savior syndrome. Like, it's like the whole, that movement, that religion is responsible for so much pain in the world. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I ever realized in terms of what you're saying now is because I understood that was removing our power, not just as women, because I actually see this also inflicting on men, because men suffer
the greater good
from having the divine feminine, because they're not allowed to show that feminine side or allow that femininity to shine through.
Yeah.
But I'd never considered the idea that it could have potential implications in terms of true healing, in terms of physical healing, in terms of the usage of our blood. And so my mind is blown, completely blown. Thank you for really for sharing that wisdom. Did I cut you off? Was there something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I can just talk for ages. But yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I asked you the question about bleeding, and I don't know what answer I was thinking that I was going to get, but that was not it. And it is just, I think it's really, I can feel it, like it's just vibrating in my cells, because it's just it's such a resonating thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought when I asked you about bleeding, we would talk about
how much we bleed.
Yes, exactly. And mundane things. And you go into this whole, yes, I'm just mind blown. You talked, hold on, let me just check where we wanna go.
Can I add
go ahead.
to this? Thank you. That we have been conditioned that our blood is dirty. Yes. And this is one of the biggest reasons that we have such a painful relationship with periods. Yes. Most of the women don't like that. They medicate themselves, or you take the pills not to even have that. And especially for younger women, younger teens going into that, we really have a very broken relationship with this spiritual aspect of our womanhood. And for any listeners, I just want to share that our blood is sacred. It's not dirty. It's or filled with toxins, as we have been told. But it's this pretty much, they contain life force energy that creates new life, as you mentioned, that because it is a sign that you're not pregnant. but you can get pregnant, and it is a source that creates new life. And every month the woman's body spends a huge amount of time and energy high grading this best quality resources in the body to create an egg. And because these eggs are not utilized every month, so they simply bleed out. So that's pretty much it. It is not toxin, as we've been taught that it's the toxic blood that is coming out of you.
Yeah,
it's not that. It's pretty much this fertile egg that has been broken and is shedding the layers from your womb, and it's coming out as blood because it's not being used to create life. Yeah. So you can think this way, that if it can be used to create life, then that blood can also be used for a lot of healing things as well. Yes. So we women have to really become discerning in questioning these things. Why are we told it's dirty? Yes. Why are we told this way? Yes. These are not toxins, but rich blood with stem cells. And mostly people are concerned that it smells bad, like this odor, and then you start to think that it's dirty and filled with toxins. But odor is usually pretty much because of the tampons that we use, the pads that we use, yes. which have chemicals like fluoride in it. That is a big no-no. Yes. And it's a big no-no for your vagina, for your yoni. And long-time exposure of your yoni and your blood to that creates the odor. So the blood itself is not smelly and stinky. If it does, of course, blood smells like blood. Yes. But that is true. but it's not a foul smell that we've been thinking of, so we
Yeah.
have to really rewire our own selves to start making a healthy relationship to this sacred blood.
Yeah. And yes, and thank you, because I know that for me, one of the biggest, first of all, like I said, ditching my prescription and tracking my cycles, but also using a cup to gather the blood rather than tampons in any way, shape, or form. In the beginning, yes, there is an adjustment in terms of gathering your blood and having your blood, seeing your blood, but it's really good to actually see it. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What is what's the thicker, everything. And I love how you're saying to begin questioning what we're told, and also what I hear and that's what you said, when you talk about it, the power of that person is just inherent. It's just and also in terms of the shedding of the blood, that makes sense to be then giving it back to nature, which is something we talked about before coming on, in that, because that to me means, because of all the nutrients and not nutrition, but the richness of it, that just again shows us just how connected, because one of the things is that we've become so far removed from nature, from our source, we've been cut off. And this just shows how we're really, really, really connected, because we can nurture the fields and the crops and by this magical machine that our body is. It's amazing.
Yeah. There is an ancient prophecy I read somewhere which said something like, when women return their blood to the earth in a sacred way, the men will come back home from war. And that literally sat with me, that we have such a big responsibility right now as women, as midwives of this, creating this new world, that as long as we are in conflict with this aspect of our spirituality, there will be a lot of outer conflict. I was so stunned with this when I heard this prophecy, and I really don't know the exact source, but it really felt so true in every cell of my body.
Yes.
Sleep that night, and I was just thinking, I need to know what to do with my blood right now. I don't want to be just being so, I need to become more mindful about what I should do with this. And it was a feeling that was transformative for me.
Yes. And I completely agree on the resonance and the depth and the truth of that statement. It makes sense. I can't explain how, but it just makes sense. I wanted to know, because I know you have a Magdalene connection as well. So will you tell us how did that come about? How did that unfold, or what happened?
What happened? It wasn't directly connected to my menstruation experience, but it was mostly connected. Maybe yes, it is. Oh yeah, that's so interesting. It was connected to my journey of discovering the dark feminine in me.
Yeah.
So the most of the dark feminine goddesses and archetypes that are talked about are Isis, Kali, Lilith, not much of Magdalene. And this happened pretty much during this particular time of Good Friday, where people were talking about death, and and I was on my periods, and I was just very angry about Bible, and there was so much of frustration and resentment and anger. And then people were talking about, on Sunday we had to go to church because Christ is risen and resurrected. And I was thinking that no one talks about the space in between the Friday and the Sunday, and I felt like maybe I'm stuck in the space in between, and maybe that's the space that is not reached. What happened? Where was Magdalene? What did she do? What's going on? What is happening? I felt so much anger, and I was in my periods, and I started dancing. I do a lot of movement practice, So when emotions are not moving, I dance, and intuitively was beginning to channel that I need to go and find the dark feminine aspect of Mary Magdalene, because that's what I'm feeling really strongly. And
Yes.
then I started, reading and going to Glastonbury and communing with some sacred sites and stuff, and kind of all fell in place for me. And of course, the blood mystery as well, like how she used to offer her blood to the earth, and how she used to teach the group of women offering the chalice, the blood through the chalice. And all of these things just kind of happened very organically, because it was coming from a place of anger and resentment that I wasn't understanding some piece in between here, between what I was taught and what I was feeling. So that's a very short story.
And it just I think it shows a very important point in terms of anger. Because again, as women and as human beings, we're not quote unquote taught to be angry. It's not okay to be angry, but there is a lot of power. I like to say that anger is a catalyst for change. But it won't be the fuel that's going to drive all the way through, but it's the catalyst. It's those spurts of anger that that can really be powerful and transforms us. And also, I have said this many times on this show, that to me, the Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, is, I mean, she's not to be played with. She's for real. And I see her as this powerful teacher who will not accept me cowering. She will not accept me not rising to the occasion. She will not accept me not, sharing my strength and being of service. She will not allow me to be subservient and sit in a corner. And when I say subservient, I don't mean being dominating or manipulating. I mean being of service to the world. That is why I came. It's why the Magdalenes came. It's why we're here. It is to be of service. To me, being a leader means to be of service to all. And the more Magdalenes I talk to around the world, and I encounter not only on the show, but in my work and life in general, I just see her. She always comes up when it's time for us to shed, like when it's the Kali fire, when everything is falling apart. That's when she shows up. She shows up because you're ready to be brought through the fire to rise. That's how I see her, and also the Magdalenes as well. So I love how you say that that's the dark feminine, because we don't go there. We don't. It's like
we're scared. We're scared. We're scared to face, and a lot of us confuse the dark feminine with our ugly side. And that's what Magdalene taught me, that it's not your shadow, but it's that aspect of you that is required right now to bring forth more of your light. We have to learn, like the anger, the rage. We have to learn how to use that so that I can be more purposeful. Not that I have to, it's not about just seeing our shadow, like my jealousy or my, the things that I don't like about myself. That's a bit different than the dark feminine that the Magdalene represents. She represents the Black Madonna. She's like really powerful dark goddess, and she teaches us how to embrace the darkness. And this is really important, because that's what happens when we have our periods. We have to embrace that, with fierce grace, fierce compassion, so that we can come out of it, being rich.
And that's just another way where they actually tried to remove that part, because they renovated the Black Madonna. Is she in Lourdes? I think there's a famous Black Madonna, and they basically whitewashed her. They cleansed her because they said that she was black because of the soot, not realizing that she was black for a reason. There's a reason that she was black. So it's total whitewash to me. It's like BS, whatever. And something that came up when you said is like, when women, even whether or not you were a mother or not, when we become angry because our world is hurting, that kind of rage is kind of what we need right now, because things are not okay. And we need that anger, that rage, in order to transform that, so that we can be a force for good for all, not just for some, not just for the patriarchy, but for all. And that's what's needed. So, yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering, is there anything else? I feel like we could be talking for like the next couple of hours. Is there anything that you feel that we haven't gone into that you think we should talk about?
So I think I want to encourage women to become curious, for those who are bleeding, to actually start making that connection. If you are not engaged in doing any blood rituals, so possibly begin with, like touching your blood and see how you feel. Like all our judgments are going to show up, and it's really important to face it, as we're talking about our family. Just face it. What is it? And explore and make this an important thing in your life, to connect with your blood. And as we spoke about offering it, it's a very beautiful thing to be able to collect your blood, maybe in a moon cup, or if you're using tampons, I would really suggest to really check and use only organic ones. And you can soak that in water and squeeze it, so then you have the blood taken off it, and then you can your vegetable garden, your flower garden. You will see that they actually beautifully blossom. I heard from women that their vegetables grow up like 3-4 times bigger in sizes. I could see videos, and I did something really naughty when I was home with my mother. I cannot share this with my mother because she's like very strict Christian. But when I was there, I was watering her plants with my blood without telling her. And then she came back and she told me, like, those were dying, and look at this. And she was sending me pictures on WhatsApp. Like, look, they're blossoming. They're all over the place. And what happened? I haven't watered them for last so many days. And I was like,
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, and then I told her, because I wanted her to first see the results. Then speak. And I told her, and she listened, and she didn't say anything because she's a very strict Christian, but she didn't. But she listened, and she didn't have anything to argue back to me, because she saw the proof. She was really surprised, because those were dead plants, almost like our flowers were dying. So she was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. And that, I mean, I like I also collect my blood, and I actually added to that. We do compost, so I added to the compost every month when I collect it. I have a jar where I add it to, and then I usually if it's around either a new moon or a full moon, I'll bring it out under that, but I'll collect it and put it out. And again, I want to emphasize, I know that having a cup might not be for everyone, but it was truly it changed everything for me. Also, not having the pads or that, it's been such an easy. In the beginning, there was an adjustment phase, but it's been amazing in terms of that.
And like you say about the moon cup, because it may not be for everybody, and I like to say, like, when you look from the Taoist perspective, you are on a downward flow during your bleeding. You have to be more grounded. So having something stuck up there can be counterproductive to your energy. So I do not recommend using that, at least for the first 3 days of bleeding. But that's the first choice.
So you would recommend using pads?
I personally use the Thinks underwear. I think that's really nice and comfortable, and I don't need to use pads, and I can wash it and reuse it. And I also sometimes use the reusable cloth pads.
And then you just rinse it with water and collect the blood through that?
Yeah, so I soak it in the water, and I keep it for an hour or something, and then I just squeeze all the water and collect the water. So I use the diluted one. Sometimes I collect blood by just bleeding directly to the earth. Now we're getting very intimate, but bleeding directly to the blood, and then taking a little bit and anointing myself. So I anoint certain parts of my body, my womb especially.
Yeah.
I have also tried ingesting it, and this is also like different level of ritual.
Yeah.
There are certain traditions that suggest to ingest, and this is pretty much the lineage of Kali, the goddess Kali. So that has been very powerful for me. I have also not shared this with many people, but to my clients who are ready, I think it's not for everybody to start ingesting.
No.
But I think you come to that level of relationship with the blood, and you feel like, I want to taste it right now, and I want to commune with.
The thing is, if you have a cut on your finger, you will stick your finger in your mouth and you will suck on it.
Yeah, and
So
that's normal.
yeah, so
it's pretty much like that. It's pretty much simple. And I will also like to do create menstrual mandala. So sometimes I create a releasing ritual and I offer the blood, and then I collect things from the nature and I create like simple mandala out of the nature, offer a prayer of gratitude and release as well. So we can be creative with the rituals.
I am, and I'm sure I'm not. I have the pack with me when I say, Jonita, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your wealth of knowledge, your depth of wisdom. And it has just been an absolute joy and pleasure to sit in sacred conversation with you. I will have links to your website and your services in the show notes, so people can just click the link and then they can find you through that, because I'm sure that there are people who will want to know more. And I want to remind people that, it's a journey. So you might be at the beginning of your journey, or you might be at the end, and it doesn't matter where in that journey you are, but just, take it step by step. It's an unveiling. It's a continual unveiling of continually knowing more and more and more. So, so thank you.
Thank you for holding space and creating this platform where we can talk about these, deep, intimate topics in such an open, heartfelt way. Thank you for holding space. You've been so beautiful, sister.
Thank you. You're welcome. That is what I had for you in today's episode of the Magdalene Voices. For all of the deeds and the details, find the show notes on my website, mariastella.com. Know that I would love to hear how it resonated with you and what you got from it. So tag me on Instagram or leave me a comment on either my website or YouTube. Finally, if it served you, please take a moment to share it with a friend or on social media. God bless.